Go into your room, that's right. Sit on that fat of yours and do nothing but listen to records.
So as we go through the house, are we actually starting off with our lifestyle system, our Shinola Runwell, our partner table with Shinola and the Shinola speakers with transparent cable. And we wanted this to literally just be that system where you place it down, you have no idea what you're doing, you just want that good system in a lifestyle feel, and you're good to go. Of course, we have a table over there that's got a cloth over that, never mind that over there. So, so we'll be getting to that momentarily. First, a not all that known fact right now with VPI is you can get any table with a gimbal. Unipivot or gimbal. We still prefer the Unipivot, but we don't want to limit a customer because they just don't like the Unipivot. So this is using our gimbal 3D printed tone arm, has a quintet bronze, and it's just our stock prime with the VPI Voyager that's got 2 inputs, moving magnet, moving coil. You can do all the adjustments on the front. Now we did that because it's easier. I know there's design philosophies that should be in the back, should be under, should be internal, whatever. I just know that if the customer is just uninformed or maybe just doesn't want to do it, then they may not change the loading of their cartridge and not get the proper experience they should be. John, you're the last one on here. Is this record good? Is this record good?
What is that? The Jeff Beck?
Yeah.
Play it.
Okay. I don't know what your kind of your taste. Does anyone know what the actual first turntable for VPI was? You know this answer.
Thomas Edison invented the first actual turntable.
It was for VPI.
Oh, okay.
It was actually an isolation base for Denon. So back in the day, the HW-9 was technically the first VPI turntable. And it was using other parts and whatnot. And there are other companies nowadays that do the same thing, taking Denon direct drive motors and whatnot, putting it to their isolation base. So we felt that thinking of our roots and having that initial HW-9 isolation base with the Denon direct drive motor and a gimbal tone arm, that we wanted to pay tribute to that. So a lot of people thought we were going to go to the HW-19 and that we were going to do a product like that, which is still a possibility maybe one day down the pike. But for our anniversary, and before all of that, it wasn't until we got to the HW-16 that VPI really got noticed. Because my dad made the HW-9 before, and no one ever remembers the HW-1 through 15. I don't even know what the 15 was. But it wasn't until the HW-16 with the cleaning machine, at the price point it hit back then, that roughly 35 years ago, when VPI actually got on the map. VPI got some notice. And then it was when Denon went back and looked at the accessory. And I love this because you have a lot of the basement manufacturers and people look down at them, but that's what we were. We were a basement manufacturer at one time. We all started, all the great companies in general started in someone's garage, in someone's basement, and having a dream and a passion to create a product. And that was my dad. He was working as a sheet metal mechanic, which was kind of funny, the electrical engineer working as a sheet metal mechanic, which who would have known that all of these other jobs and professions would have given him all the tools he needed to know what to do from a manufacturing standpoint.
Union sheet metal worker made more money.
There you go, union sheet metal worker. And all of it ended up applying to VPI. And ironically, he's not here today, but Leo Polanco, one of our longtime staff members, he was actually one of the woodworkers for the original 16. And I don't know, I've heard lots of stories where he just hated his boss and just went up to my dad and was like, hey, can I work for you guys? My dad's like, well, we're not really a company yet. And I just remember as a child, I was so confused because I remembered that Leo would come over and go in the basement. And as a small child, I thought, what the heck? How come Dad gets to have his friends over in the basement all day and play? This isn't fair. But and they were doing it like that right in the basement, and then it eventually emerged into a larger facility, and then we kept on growing from there. But it was the HW-16 cleaning machine that made notice, and then Denon kind of went back in that HW-9. And Dad, feel free to throw a flag in the play if I'm getting any of this wrong. I'm pretty sure you lived it, so. And that's when it became a little more noticed, and that kind of gave VPI more of a boost forward. then fast forward, then it led to my dad eventually making the HW19 and other notable tables like the TNT. The TNT was actually Dad's first effort of saying, we are high end. We can hit that next level. It's not just a bang for the buck table, which we love, but we have that legitimacy, engineering, and quality to hit that high level product. So which led to the TNT. Eventually the Aries, then the Aries Scout. Aries name got dropped, and it came the Scout, our classic turntable, and then as we came forward, with my mom and dad running through the company, then I came along. And realistically, I had no urge to do this. To be perfectly honest, I was happily a teacher. A lot of you know my background and whatnot, but I was a CAD teacher, computer assisted design, web design, animation, 3D modeling, and that's kind of my little take to it. And I mention that because when you look at the Prime, and just circling giving the brief, there's a lot more to us. Oh, I should say, part of the anniversary is we will be releasing a VPI book that will be available 2019. I'm pretty much just saying excerpts from the book right now. And you have that in your bags as far as elements of that. And when we came to the Prime, I just took what I felt was the best, going back to family and my daughter, growing up, listening with my dad, listening with my mom, and just having that. I loved the outbound motor of the Aries. I loved the sound of the chassis of the Scout. The suspension similar to that of an HW19. The classic platter, now Prime platter. The JMW unipivot tone arm. The VTA base reminiscent to the TNT. And then my own little twist of having that suggestion. Because keep in mind, I gave my dad a lot of ideas, and most of them were, I just threw against the wall to see what happened. And we were over at Harold's, over a corned beef sandwich, and he was working on the early rendition of what you're going to see in a moment. And it's like, oh, why don't we 3D print the darn thing, spitting corned beef everywhere, and that's what led to that, then having my own mark on there, and then continuing on with the family name, and then all of that being said, all of this leads to why we created what we created, which brings us to... Cue the music. Actually, Mike, can you help me? I don't want to do this thing.
I was going to say, but...
Oh, wait, pause. Actually, before we get to that, pause for effect.
Hold on.
Pause for effect. By the way, also, we had another product, kind of recently. A lot of you reviewed it in here, actually. And that was our... Oh, let's just unveil it.
Just do it.
Come back to it. Ready? And
Tony, sit down.
the HW-40.
Tony, sit down.
Direct Drive Turntable.
You're killing me, man.
All right, everybody, close-ups now.
Okay, close-ups, gentlemen. So presenting the VPI HW40. 12-inch gimbal Fat Boy. New VTA Fat Boy base. Thank you. Direct drive motor. New isolation.
Wow. Pardon me, Bess. Let me get out of your way, buddy.
I don't want this.
And featuring in this case the Audio Technica Art 1000. Other associated gear being our Nordos cabling, Moon by Sim audio amplification, VPI Voyager, the Kef blades. As you can see, we have, this is going to be a limited edition turntable. We are making 400 of these. 1 out of 400, 2 out of 400. All the fun serial numbers and everything in there. And then after that, who knows? Well, the HW40 is a $15,000 table.
Whoa.
So we are taking everything, and I'm going to turn this over to Mike in a second, who, and I have to tell you, Mike Bettinger over here, he's just like a sleeping giant, because this man has done a lot to help my dad take the direct drive technology and move the needle forward to just hit new groundbreaking technology. So the similar concept of of the classic direct at $30,000, but now hitting half the price, double the technology, and the ability for updates. Well, actually, in this case, I'm sorry. One thing which is not seen, but it is happening: hinge dust cover that's removable. From there, I'm going to pass the floor off to. We're all in.
Are you going to move that technology in that VTA tower to other arms?
That is correct. So everything you're seeing here will be backwards compatible. Everything we do with VPI, I mean, you can take a Cliffwood at $900, which would be kind of insane, but still, you can take a Cliffwood and mount that arm on there. you know, the arm would only be a lot more money than the whole table itself, but that's okay. We don't judge. It's totally fine. So all this is backwards technology, and you might be seeing a lot of nuances of this on other VPI
The
products.
15K doesn't include the arm, right?
This is 15K with the arm.
With the arm.
Correct.
Where are you making this? China?
This is still made right here in America. And I will say, you might be wondering about the price, and a lot of it is with improved engineering, improved quality, and a lot of it is the numbers. We are going all in on this. This is not the kind of case we're doing onesies, twosies, because there's a lot of phenomenal products out there in this industry, and the pricing just does not make sense from a manufacturing standpoint. Because and that's no takeaway from any other product's quality. But when you do the manufacturing the proper way, you do the research, you do the work, and again, I've got to give it to the whole VPI team. I got to give it to Mike Bettinger of all the time and effort that was put into it. Also,
We will give it to you, Mike. We will, not just Matt.
and I also will say, we listen. We try to listen to both the consumers and the reviewers with upgraded isolation, with upgraded features in general, with more. If you ask for it, we listen and we try to meet the needs and demands of the customers and suggestions of both the reviewers.
Extremely good isolation because you can sit and knock on the
Yeah.
table versus.
Now I'm going to turn this over to Mike actually to keep on going.
Okay. Basically, this came out of taking a look at the original direct drive table, and we pretty much started out with a clean slate. We retained the original motor,
Thin gap.
the thin gap motor. It's a beautiful motor, and everything else from that point is new. So what we did is, after evaluating the original direct drive table, is we sat down and took a look at what new technology was out there. There's a lot of new technology, if you want to call it that, insofar as motion controls for metrology, for machining, you know, where you have to move around a lot of weight very precisely, be able to accelerate to position, decelerate, and then stop with no, you know, no shimmering, no nothing. You know, so vision systems can take high-speed inspection, machining of you know, critical parts where the surface texture, you know, the surface finishes relies on the control that the tools have over its position. Looked into what was available and pretty much came away with the whole new drive system that's, I would say, cutting edge, and the motion control software that goes along with it. This table pretty much was fine-tuned, you know, in a number of ways to get the basic operation you know, locked in. And a lot of the performance to minimize the noise was done literally by placing an unmodulated groove record on and a cartridge, and then working through the software, fine-tuning the software based on the underlying residual noise.
Is the speed adjustable in any way?
Not in this one. I mean, it's basically, it's going to have a USB port on the back of it, and the
Right.
speed can be adjusted, you know, with software.
Yeah.
But the thing is that we're using a ring encoder that gives us about 2,500 samples per revolution insofar as monitoring what the platter's doing.
Right.
And then past that point, the speed is dialed in by number. And the ability of the software to actually correct, as it's doing its correction from moment to moment to moment, at very, very finely controlled accelerations and decelerations of the corrections, but done in such a way that they're actually smoothed as well. So the normal, what people would call the sound of a direct drive turntable, which is there, you know,
Yeah.
much like any other, is pretty much been, I would like to say eliminated, but at least taken to a level, you know, that's ridiculously low.
Is everything
High
built in
torque.
terms of electronics?
Everything is built in, linear power supplies, which in the case of a direct drive motor, you want to have a power supply that will actually source power and sync power, because the motor is actually an inductive load. So as the demands of the stylus and everything are occurring on the platter, there's quite a bit of accelerating, decelerating, and, you know, there's quite a bit of information, much like a speaker that's kicked back to the amplifier that's driving it. This is all very well controlled, and this linear power supply assists in that. All of the layout for the The motion control to the driving of the motor has been actually fine-tuned to the point where all the wiring between the servo drivers and the motor itself are very, very short, very little chance, very, very little emitted noise or RF or anything that's coming from the system itself. Grounding's done to minimize all that too, so there's no, virtually we don't measure anything short of getting real up close with my RF probe right up to the servo driver. So everything's very well controlled in that respect. The motor itself is VPI designed. It's kind of more or less like the bell housing type thing, as like in a car, like a brake drum or something like that bolts up a 5-point mounting onto the bottom of it, and the actual stator's built into the motor housing itself, and then solidly bolted to the kind of mass loaded by this thick aluminum plate that it's all mounted on, which is reminiscent of the classic design. The actual new design aspects of this is it's a removable platter, which the original one wasn't, which allows us to ship the platter separately, which caused some issues in shipping overseas in the past version of the table.
So at this price point, how does it affect the rest of your line, the more expensive products?
Compared to the Avenger.
No. Actually, I'm glad you mentioned
Avenger
that.
reference.
So,
what happened?
Initially when we launched this, it's just the 400th anniversary edition, and it's going to run for the 40th. We're not just doing a table; we're doing an experience. Because a lot of companies have an anniversary.
Where is she? I'm sorry.
No, because 40 years is something to celebrate. And we're going to be doing other aspects with this. So you're going to be seeing more integration of the direct drive motor. So it won't impact it because I still remember a listening comparison we did a while back with the direct drive Vanquish, whatever my dad made, versus the Titan. The Titan is a rim drive table. And not getting into too much details, but we listened to both. We used a Lyra Atlas. It was a prototype Fat Boy. We moved to both, same cable, same everything. And these two guys were at odds with each other. One was like, no, the Titan's the best. The other was like, you're crazy. The Vanquish is the best. So that's why, and what I really feel, what we do with the Avenger series and all of our reference series is, at that price point, who the heck are we to tell you what you want to listen to?
That's my job.
Yeah, that's you. You tell them all what to do. It's all good. So that's why we are going to be seeing a lot of the technology trickle down, and I think what's going to be happening more so is that it's going to broaden the just the availability for customers for the type of technology and drive. I mean, there's people it's belt, rim, direct drive. It's like different flavors
Dental
of wine.
floss, whatever.
Dental floss. Don't even get started
Some
on that.
people will never buy this table
Right.
because they're wound up. Because they had a table back in 1980 and they couldn't stand it.
Right.
And blah, blah, blah. But this doesn't sound like that. This is an AC motor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing to point out, you'll notice that
Who
there
are you,
is-
by the way?
I drink.
Oh yeah, that's Harry, the founder. He's just kind of hanging out. You'll notice something that's a bit different and kind of unique for the VPI design. There's no wire loop.
Yeah.
Now, this is a removable arm. Well, when I say removable, we don't exactly recommend it because it's all set. But this is a design also that you will be seeing in the sense where you would be able to do other arms. And with it, it'll be a low profile of the dust cover. There is no wire loop. There is anti-skate. Don't worry. We know how we love that.
I saw it.
Excellent, excellent. But then when you look at tables like the Avenger, for example, we do feel that models like that are for more of the, I'm going to say the tweaky customer, the customer that wants different options.
This is so elegant looking. This is
Yeah.
the most beautifully simple, elegant thing you've ever done. Actually.
Thank you. Yeah. And actually, this is missing one aspect. This is pretty much the first one that's nice and clean. Oh, we have the
So
prototype one out there.
you're gonna mess it up with what?
It's just going to say, actually, I have that. I'll pull up that picture in a second. It says the VPI logo, 40th anniversary, direct drive.
Not
Direct
too
Drive
big
Turntable.
now. Not too big.
Not too big. It'll be nice and classy. And then, of course, it'll identify what each of these buttons do. And you'll be seeing that. And the public presentation of this will be actually at Capitol Audio Fest in 2 weeks. And that one we'll have with the finished silk screen. And we'll be getting these out in the world, doing lots of presentations,
Great.
demonstrations.
Reviews.
Reviews,
samples.
of course. Yeah. What's that?
When are you going to release it?
The goal is to have it shipping by February.
Wow.
That's the goal. But hey, if we can get it before the holidays, that's gravy. But we're not going to set any solid times with that because we don't want to rush anything with this. Like I said, with the VPI book, the plan is to have that shipping with this table. There are a couple other fun little things because we don't want to just get the table right. We also want the storytelling, the branding, and the overall package of this property.
You're not going to launch it at CES? What is CES anyway?
I have no idea.
It's a show that was moved to Munich.
Yeah, right. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we do have one at CES in
You
general.
going to go to CES?
Oh, I'm not going to go. No, I mean, maybe we'll zip out there. It's no comment. Well, we did that. So last year we actually did the I'm not going to CES party.
Yeah.
And it was not meant to be an anti-CES party, but it kind of was. And we had like over 80 people in here. That's before the renovations. This whole house was a disaster. We had over 80 people. So we'll be having lots of that stuff. You'll be seeing this at Munich. You'll be seeing this whole...
Basically, compared to the original direct drive motor, this is a high torque design. If you watch, it gets up to full speed within a second. If you feel the platter itself, it's reminiscent of rim drive.
Yeah.
And so far as its torque, the power delivery and everything, because of the software tuning, it's extremely smooth. And one of the reasons that you take a direct drive and drive it with a very, very light drive is that it minimizes motor noise, vibration, etc. We've been able to, through the design of the motor itself, the housing, the mounting of it, the tuning of the software, everything, we've been able to get this to the point where it'll actually run at that.
How heavy is the platter?
It's 25 pounds, same basic bearing assembly that we use like in all the higher end tables, Titan through the Avengers and whatnot. The one
004.
it's done by the numbers.
You cannot use a record to measure it.
No.
Yeah, we're past the point with both the rumble and the speed and wound flutter and all that's below the resolution of anything we've got that'll measure it, other than looking at the encoder counts, which I'll hook up the computer to it and look at that.
Yep.
It's at 33 RPM, there's 1,423 counts per revolution, and the error that we're reading is down in 1 and 2 counts range, and it's kind of as you're watching it run. We've taken the motor drive down from where we started at about an amp or so, when it was running, down to like a 0.1 amps. It draws 6 or 7 amps in startup, just to give you an idea of the range, and how smooth it's running and how little power it takes to keep it rolling. And then the other thing we want to talk about is the isolation here. In order to have a table this heavy, you can see it won't we have to put a record on. So it feels a little on the soft side, but that's a good thing.
Yeah.
The pads that we're using there are kind of a cutting edge material that's a closed cell foam, but the advantage of this particular material is that if you take normal, like a silicone foam or something, you compress it over a period of time, it'll actually collapse, much like Sorbothane or anything will do, and then it takes it a long time to rebound. This will collapse a maximum of about 10% over time, and I've actually had this under like my reference classic table for months at a time, and you pull the table off of it, and they pretty much pop right back up.
Get the grades over time, or
it does not degrade over time. It's also completely inert insofar as any interaction with surface finishes, anything of that nature, so you won't end up with those black
And are
rings.
those that
yeah.
the feet over on the top of that tape recorder, or is that what that is?
No.
Oh, that's something else.
No, these are basically it's a two-step thing, and actually the 4 corners are tuned for the weight that's on them. But there's actually a low durometer isolator like we use in our other tables, only much better. And then there's a pad of this vibration isolation material there, and you'll see the effectiveness. Like I say, you go like this on the table when it's playing. If you know,
Good. I like to hear that.
you very, very little effective.
This motor.